Thank you for joining us this evening. We have the great pleasure to have Sheriff Rick DiBasilio here with us tonight, and it's an honor. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
I know it is in fire season, so wanted to start off with a little bit on evacuation stuff, what people, the protocols in place, and also wanted to thank the county for, have that online mapping tool where people can see evacuation boundaries and everything else, and you just had to go through one a few days ago with the Aurora fire, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I guess the thing I need to emphasize most, and I've been watching CAL FIRE during some of these briefings with the fire north of us and even the Dixie fire, the difference between evacuation orders and evacuation, the recommendations.
Yes.
Huge difference. If you get called and they're telling you to be prepared to evacuate, you need to do that. You need to prepare to evacuate. You need to get everything that you want ready to go at a moment's notice. So if we call and say that there's a mandatory evacuation, you can load and go.
Right.
And it's not a bad idea that, and again, they've been saying it through CAL FIRE, that if they're giving you a warning, more than likely it's going to be coming to that mandatory evacuation. If you can get out, I don't know how many people watch the television and watch Tahoe try to evacuate.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yes. I won't say it was a fiasco, but people were sitting in line for 3 to 4 hours to get out of town. We have some areas like Arnold that are very restricted on access of getting in, ingress and egress out of there. Even Highway 26 West Point corridor can be pretty dicey.
Yes.
So people, if you get a warning, to where an evacuation warning, get your stuff and leave. You can always come back.
Right.
So I just hate to see it take a
question on this, and this is something that I thought correct me if I'm wrong on this, on the after action stuff on the Paradise, on the campfire up there, and I think there's some parallels to Arnold and some of our areas. The natural instinct for people is to want to get down the hill to where there's more infrastructure and everything else.
Right.
But, in our area, you can take the path of least resistance. You could go up over Evans. I mean, you may not want to, but you can get away from the fire's path fairly quickly if it's. I mean, am I wrong on that?
Absolutely. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand, John, is that what they need to do is they need to look now, today, and see what is their fastest area of escape. Depending on where the fire is, they need to know all the escape routes. So if you're in downtown Arnold and the fire is in Avery, you're not going out Highway 4, and it's heading that direction.
You're going up over.
You can either go up and over, or you can go up to Borge Crossing, and you can go out and come into Sonora. You can go out Sheep Ranch. There are numerous ways to get out. There are fire roads, but you can drive a car on them. You can drive a motorhome on most of those fire roads. So there are ways to get out of there. They need to know that now.
Right.
Don't wait until it starts.
Yeah. A question is, I know, hats off to the firefighters, because I don't know if you can say it, but was there some discussion when the Aurora fire this last few days is if that one would have been established in the Stanislaus drainage and it started working up, I mean, we could have been Caldor then, because if it starts marching up, I mean, it's right behind Forest Meadows, it's behind, if it starts working up the drainage.
Yeah, it's ugly, to say the least.
Yeah.
It really is, because fire travels very quickly, as we know, uphill.
Yes.
And that's all uphill.
Yeah.
It went up over the top of Echo Summit. That's all uphill, over the top of almost 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
It moves quickly. So, it could have been very devastating at backside of Forest Meadows, Sunrise Point, Avery, in Arnold. Right. And who knows where it would have been.
And with the forks of the Stanislaus, it can even have gone over towards Cedar Ridge. Even the backside of Cedar Ridge, it could have, the Twainhard area. Okay, on back over to law enforcement stuff a little bit. What's the state of local law enforcement? How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Department-wise, we're down, I think 7 deputies right now.
Open spots?
Yeah, we have 7 open spots. Well, now don't take that as a bad thing. We had 5 open spots because we had some retirements.
Right.
We had a couple folks that moved on, went down to wherever they went. We had a guy that we actually put through the academy the day he graduated, and he was before we actually swore, no, I take that back. We even swore him in. He said, yeah, no, law enforcement's not for me because of what's going on. So he left. But the Board of Supervisors did give me 2 new positions, one for the marijuana team and one for our what we call Edward beat, to put more people on the streets.
Yeah.
So they've been very helpful in that aspect. So we're down 7 right now. We just sent 4 to the academy. They actually started on the 18th of August. So they'll be graduating in 6 months. We're doing a recruiting for what we call a level 1 deputy. That is somebody who has already been through the academy.
Right.
So all we have to do is hire them on and then put them through our field training program.
Yeah.
So we're looking to hopefully pick up 3 or 4 there, and if we can pick up a couple of out of the academy, we'll be full quick if that all follow cards align right.
Right.
I'm down correctional officers. Part of that is because I pulled 2 correctional officers and sent them to the academy. And that's kind of a stepping stone for a lot of these folks, which is great for people that are 18 years of age.
Sure.
You can't carry a gun, but you can certainly work in corrections if you want a job in law enforcement. Start in corrections, work 2.5 years, we send you through the academy, and at 21 you're able to carry a gun.
And doesn't that help you, within the fraternity, so to speak, as they did their time? Is it not? Or
it does, okay. But what it does more than anything is it lets them learn how to deal with people.
Right.
Bad people.
Right.
It lets them get their feet underneath them. Because, when we were 18, 19 years old, what are you thinking about? Where are you going tonight for dinner? You're not thinking about that type of a job. So it's a great opportunity for these young folks. And then dispatchers. We're also still looking for, I think, 3 dispatchers, 3 or 4 dispatchers.
There's been a lot of talk, national news and everything else about social workers instead of law enforcement, everything else. But I think in small departments, I wanted to, I don't know how to phrase this, but you guys have had some officer-involved shooting incidents this last year, or even there was one, I believe, that was last year, to where the amount of restraint that your department showed was amazing. Because, you had an opportunity to, just from the scanner stuff and from after, justifiably end somebody's, sometimes you have to take those shots. But I know there's been a lot of cases where you guys have, the amount of restraint you've shown has been pretty amazing.
We have a phenomenal group of deputies that work for this county right now.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. We've had multiple incidents where they were justified, and they talked these people down and did a fantastic job. And I can't give them enough praise for what they did.
Yes.
It's hard to stand there and have somebody threatening you or threatening somebody and either be pointing a gun at you or whatever, and to not shoot them, to protect whom you're supposed to be protecting.
Yes.
And to
even them.
Even them.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's trying to convince them that, hey, there's a better way to do this. And that's a tough job. My respect for my folks, our folks, they work for us in the county.
Yes.
They're phenomenal. I can't say enough about it.
Do they see, this is their home, right? Isn't that for a large, and they're protecting their home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're going to be dealing with at any point in time.
Right.
That could be your best friend's mother that you've never met.
Right.
You don't know. I tell everybody, we have a very large county, very small community.
Oh yes, one degree of separation from everybody. Almost.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And everybody pretty much knows everybody in one aspect.
One of the things we got it on the news side that I think, and this ties into the social side, I want to commend you guys on, is that, we got some emails in of where, we saw there was shots fired here. How come you didn't report on it? Because if you followed up on it, there was shots fired, but then there was also a chaplain called, which means that was probably a suicide or something. Because you guys come into people's lives to where not only you never know what situation you're coming into, but in small communities, you're much more than law enforcement. You're social. I mean,
Social services.
Yeah, I mean, what's the internal dialogue on stuff like that?
Well, there's been a lot of talk in the public and throughout the legislature that they don't want police to show up to mental health situations.
Right.
I got to step back and say, if you look at what happened in Oregon, they had social workers responding to somebody in mental crises, and that person in mental crises killed 2 social workers. A lot of people don't see that or hear about that, and that's the reality of it. So,
because there's a potential for violence with that stuff.
Absolutely, right. And the problem is that they're saying that the cops are showing up and they're killing these people that are in mental crises. Well, I got to look back and I got to talk about Kristen Brinks, who's our HHS director that's moved on. Between her and Sam Leach and my office and all 3 of our offices, we have worked together and we've started a program called Stepping Up. And what it does is we have a social worker that works within our jail that works with our inmates in the jail. The other side of that is we have a social worker that works out of our jail that goes and meets with our deputies to go talk to somebody in crisis. A couple of years back here, 3 years ago, we actually went to Florida to receive an award from the International Police Chiefs Association, which Brenda Hanley at the time was our social worker. And I worked with her before I became the sheriff out on the streets. And that woman could talk a monkey out of a tree.
Right.
A banana tree.
Right.
She was phenomenal, but we had that, and we still have that in place within our system, within our county, so that when we go to somebody who's in mental crisis, yes, we show up as law enforcement, but we have a social worker there that we're actually pushing in front of us to get them to talk to that person in crises, but we're there to protect them, both of them, if it goes to that.
Now, to me, that would seem, it would make the social worker actually more effective because they have some backup, so to speak, right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
in a weird way.
It is, but I think it's more security blanket for them.
Yeah, that's what
But we still, I remember going to this call with Brenda myself, and I just kind of stood back behind the car so that if I needed to, I could protect her. Right. But that person wasn't focused on me, they were focused on Brenda. And Brenda was able to convince that guy to get in my car and let me take him to mental hospital.
Right.
So our system is working fantastic. There's a lot of mental crises out there. I mean, the drugs that we have out there now, the fentanyl, the things that are going on with that, it's enhancing people's mental, I don't want to say incapacities, but it's causing some paranoia.
Right.
And our social workers that we have in this county do a phenomenal job.
Yeah. I guess the other question is it ties a little bit into, because sometimes if a family or a person's going through a crisis or has an incident, you always get pushback on, and I saw this at some of the Murphy's meeting and everything else, of why didn't you guys report this, or why didn't you do this and everything else, but sometimes if you read the tea leaves, your guys' actions were actually what was best for all the people involved. It may not satisfy the people who were curious about the gossip angle.
People that don't know.
Yeah, that is
a tough hill to climb that I don't think any sheriff's office will ever overcome. I've told you this before, during the campaign and stuff. Social media is great when it's used in a informational way.
Right.
The problem is that people are using social media and they're playing telephone with it.
Oh boy.
And it just goes from, Rick just fell over the cat to Rick just stepped on the cat on purpose.
Yes.
And it causes a lot of problems. As you mentioned, I said that pretty much at that Murphy's Town Hall meeting.
Yeah.
People need to quit relying on other people for information, and because the sheriff's office, Cal Fire, Angels PD, the entities that are handling these things are putting out the information that they can at that time.
Right.
There are times when we can't put out information because it could inhibit an investigation or cause panic.
Let me ask you a question. This is because lots of times, and this ties in a little bit to some of the stuff, is we get a lot of inbound of why I have more information on this, or why wasn't this in the sheriff's log and everything. And I was thinking to myself, I said, wait a minute. If this was called in as a medical call and not a law enforcement encounter, it wasn't in your pool until later, right? Am I wrong on that? I mean, if this was a medical incident.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. And that's that hill that we'll never be able to crest, because people assume because that medical call became a sheriff's office incident that we should have put it into our logs. But that's not how it came to us.
Right.
Going back to the Murphy's thing.
It was an after action thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
We put in our log where it occurs and whom it occurred with. If it was a fire call, medical call, well, fire's the one that's going to take care of that.
Right.
So that's something that we'll never overcome, because it's like when we put stuff, for instance, if I call dispatch or dispatch calls me and says, hey, we have a petty theft at Sender's Market.
Right.
And I show up to Sender's Market and it ends up being a grand theft where they just stole the whole store. It's logged as a petty theft because that's how it was called in.
Right.
We don't go back into the log and change it. That's just not how it works. Our system's not set up that way.
And I guess do people need to realize that, because there are HIPAA laws in place.
Yeah.
And with the HIPAA laws, if it's called in as a medical incident, they have the expectation of privacy on a medical incident. Does that fall into some of that stuff as far as the disclosure stuff, a little bit or not?
Some of those calls may, but not always.
Right, It's just whatever bucket it started in to start with.
It is, and that's just how it is. And again, for us to go back in and change all that stuff to put it in the log is time intensive, and that's not, because then it changes the statistics. The problem is that people have, and I hate to be curse about this, but people think that the cops are always hiding stuff.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some bad cops out there,
Sure.
and we're doing the best we can to get rid of those bad cops. But they have to trust us. That's what they employ us to do. So please give us the benefit of the doubt. If we get proven wrong, that's one thing. Then there's a problem, and I get that. But we're doing the best we can with what we've got, and we're going to give you the information that we absolutely can.
Yeah.
For me, in this sheriff's office, we don't hide anything. I have nothing to hide. If you ask me a question, if I can give you the answer, I absolutely will.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the rub? And I know this is probably beating the dead horse a little bit, but with changes in rules at the state level that have basically made the revolving door for recidivism and stuff. I mean, how is that? Are you getting better on how to manage that now, or how is it? What's the status of stuff on that?
That's a tough one. I got beat up a little bit at that Murphy's town hall because of that, and I will say this: Prop 47, the Safe Schools and Neighborhoods Act, that was implemented in 2014, took all of our Schedule I drugs, all the bad drugs, not marijuana, but PCP, cocaine, methamphetamines, and they made them a misdemeanor. Per federal regulations, that is still a felony. Okay, so they took that away from us, so that now we can't. If we take them and arrest them and put them in jail, they're out before we even get out of the office.
Right.
They took. And this goes back to the people carrying the $899 TVs on their shoulder. Yeah. Because they took and made a felony that used to be $400. They moved it up to $950. Yeah. So go back to the recidivism part. It's made it to where these guys they don't care. They're getting a slap on the wrist. Right. The legislator, and I'll be very clear on this, the legislator told the state of California, you have to reduce your prison population. I get that. That's what they told them because we were at 137% of population. They were overcrowded. I get that. They never told the state of California, you have to let people out. They said that you need to reduce population. That doesn't mean they couldn't have built new jails or found some other avenues to put inmates to reduce that population. The state of California, whomever it was at the time, chose to release inmates. And that puts them back into our community.
Yeah.
And when you put people that need to be in custody back out into the public, they're going to do stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Because they can get away with it.
Because we can get away with it. I guess this kind of segues into what can people do for themselves. You know, you hear a lot of stuff on the security camera stuff and everything else. Now, is that something that you would suggest that everybody have now, because then they have a de facto record of stuff that helps you guys as well?
Absolutely. Don't buy the cheap cameras. Think about it. If somebody breaks into your house and steals your TV, your VCR, and your 4 firearms, what was that $2,000 good security system worth?
Right.
Okay. So security systems, talk to your neighbors, contact us if you're going to go on vacation. We have our neighborhood watch programs. We also have our program where the volunteers will come by and do a vacation house check. So if you're going to be gone, you can fill out some paperwork, or a piece of paper basically saying how long you're going to be gone.
Right.
We will do drive-bys. Our volunteers, we love our volunteers. They will get out of their car and go walk around your house. Make sure everything is secure. So protect yourself. Letting your neighbors know is key. And security cameras, alarm systems.
Right. Right.
Protect yourself, because we aren't everywhere.
Right. But the security systems, that also gives you better documentary evidence, right?
Absolutely.
Doesn't it make it to where,
absolutely.
Makes your job easier, right?
Well, it does. It helps.
Right.
I don't know if it makes it easier, but it certainly helps.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it a deterrent now? Is it still a deterrent? If people know where the...
Yeah. When I was working up in Arnold, again, before I was a sheriff, I went down a street and I was just doing vacation house checks.
Yeah.
And I found footprints in the snow. And every house that did not have an alarm sign in their window got a door kicked in. You know? And every house that had an alarm on their window, they didn't bother. So I hate to say pass the problem off to your neighbor, but if we can get all of our neighbors to get security systems, it will solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So you have to protect yourself and do what you can. And one thing I want to say is don't just have your cameras facing into the residence. That's great if they come in, but you can see the back of their head because they've gone by.
Right.
Face some cameras out so you can see that car that's driven by your house 4 or 5 times and maybe get a license plate, or see the person walking up to the house.
Right. Right.
Multiple angles.
Yeah. As far as what are you seeing as far as trends with we've had a lot of change in population density, especially up country and stuff with the COVID stuff. Are you seeing any noticeable, any trends that are of note, that are, any of things that are of note?
And I'm not sure what direction you want to go with this, but let's talk with just the people coming up out of the valley. You made that comment.
Yeah.
People are moving up into our county because they don't want to be in the cities anymore, partly because of COVID and partly who knows why else.
Right.
They can work remotely, so they've moved up here.
Yep.
So we've seen an influx of people that are driving, we'll call it erratically. They're not used to driving into the mountains. They drive slow in the quarters and they go like heck during the straightaways. We're seeing our traffic accidents, collisions, and not an accident, collisions, those numbers have gone up because people are not driving safely. They're driving too fast. Again, go to Murphy's, people driving through town.
Right.
A lot of those are locals.
Yeah.
Now, whether they're local from the past 20 years, 40 years, or local because they just moved up here 6 months ago, but people are driving way too fast on our mountain roads. We need to slow them down. We need to get our kids that are getting their new driver's licenses to slow down. That's number one priority.
Yeah.
As far as crime stats, and I've had this asked to me many times, we are still, and the only time you want to be at the bottom of the totem pole is in crime stats, and we still, in the state of California, are at the bottom of the totem pole for crime stats. Yeah. Our homelessness, yes, we have homeless in this county. We do what we can for them. Most of them don't want our help.
Right.
I took Marty Crane out and walked her around and introduced her to homeless people, and they said, yeah, we like being homeless. No concerns, no responsibilities. So we have them, but we do what we can with them
Right.
and for them if they need
Right.
it.
Right.
So, but as far as crime, we're still down at the bottom, which is, I thank our public for that.
Right.
Because they're all watching out for each other.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah. Recruitment. So you still looking for good young people that want to join the department?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We actually put a thing out on our Facebook page, then I put it on my Facebook page to try and get people to come up. We're looking for local people. They have a vested interest in this.
Yes.
They grew up here.
Yes.
Why not come
Yes.
and work here? I mean,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen our video, our recruitment video, go to the sheriff's office and search a recruitment video. It is a phenomenal video, and you get to see my pretty face in there. But the folks that did this recruitment video first did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And it's true. Why not work where you play?
Right. Right.
If
Yeah.
you're a deer hunter, you know where the deer are.
Yes, it's true.
If you want to go four-wheeling like me, you know where the trails are.
Yeah.
So hiking, camping,
Yeah.
fishing, swimming, we've got it all.
I know this goes off topic a little bit as but we're coming up to Labor Day weekend. This will probably air afterwards, but the forests are going to be closed now. Is that something to where you guys will have to get involved a little bit on any of the enforcement stuff on that, or is that mostly just going to be Forest Service personnel?
No, we're involved in that. We have our highway vehicle program, which is a grant that we have from the U.S. Forest Service. So we will be out enforcing that and writing citations to people. So yeah, people need to stay out of the forest. The other thing I want to mention about Labor Day weekend is boating. Life jackets, life jackets, life jackets. And no drinking. Please don't drink and drive your boat. It's illegal in a car. It's illegal in a boat. We don't need the accidents. We've had knock on wood, a fairly good summer so far to not having a lot of boating accidents.
But last year there was a couple horrific ones.
Yeah,
just horrific.
Yeah, we've had a couple. We've had a few drownings this year.
Yes,
but not related to boat accidents.
Right.
So as bad as I hate to say it, I would like to. As bad as accidents are when people drown, I don't want to see the boating accidents.
Thanks for what you do.
Absolutely.
I mean that, and I think even before you were sheriff, you have, you deliberately kept I think a higher profile in the community because I think it, was trying to serve a purpose with it. And thank you. I know because you were worked in the schools before and everything, in there, and from following along on some of these calls, the amount of restraint that you guys have shown and where you're into being the de facto social worker in some of these interactions with people, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that, again, last thing I'll say is that goes out to the people that work for us.
Yes.
Our deputies, our correctional officers, all of my staff are phenomenal people, and they have the county's interest at heart. So.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Absolutely.